Eric Seraphin has done it all. This dude wrote The Adventures of Mixerman. I think it's called The Daily Adventures of Mixerman. It's sort of a satire where he changes the names of the people he's worked with, but great stories about the music business and his role and what would happen on these sessions. It's worth a read, all right? Right now, I got this is a 12-year-old interview on Pensado's place, and I personally love going back and digging stuff up because there are gems all over the place. Pensado's place is one of the best archives we have for what people are doing who are these top guys. So listen to this quick clip, then we're going to talk about it. But a lot of people want to know, you know, how to get their mix to be done a little quicker, or just another thought process on that. So check this out, all right? Fair use for teaching purposes. Fair use for teaching purposes. Here we go.
Mixing is neither a linear process nor a technical one. It's a musical process, and as such, a mix is something that one performs, like an artist.
Man,
I always know when I'm done a mix by when I stop paying attention to the mix. If I start singing, it's really funny. I'll start dancing, too. I had the flashlight dance for years. Take the 2 flashlights, because studios always have flashlights. And
that's an image I'd just rather not have right now, but let's proceed.
Well, you know, but I know once I start to dance and I start to move, and the music starts to do what it's supposed to do to me, and I forget that I'm mixing it, and I start to get excited, I know I'm close and or done, one or the other. And you know, ending a mix is a funny thing. Sometimes I've ended mixes where I'm 3 hours away, and you make 3 moves, and you're like, whoa. That's it, it's done. Boom. And then sometimes you're like, I'll be 10 minutes, and 10 hours later, you're still banging your head.
Help me out here, because I have an illness. It's a virus. It's called the 2-day virus.
Yes.
Sometimes a 3-day virus, right, Herb? How do I get over that? I mean, my friend Phil Tan has given me some advice. Drew has tried to help me. I can't finish a mix in a day. What's wrong with me?
I don't know.
Am I going to find the answer in Zen and the art of mixing?
I'm not sure you need to fix anything there, Dave. But well, no, I mean, your results are good.
I'm trying to be funny, but I agree with you. I started to say 1,000%, which there's no such thing. I agree with you 100%. There's a point in every mix where it's like a bell curve, and you reach the crest of that bell curve, and you start going down the backside.
Yes.
And normally that part comes, for me, after about 10 to 12 hours.
Yeah.
But I'm so afraid to let it go loose. Now, if I can come back the next day and spend a little time with it, I'm not going to count that as a 2-day mix. That's just come hear it fresh. So,
yeah.
So a lot of times I can do that, but most of the time, I feel like I've gotten so much better the next day that I start redoing things, and I start trying to. It's like it's a virus. It's something.
I don't know. When I was mixing,
it's confidence.
Confidence is critical to mixing. I mean, when confidence is shaken, you have a real problem, and that's producing too. I mean, and anything that involves our business. I mean, half our business is making sure that we're constantly instilling confidence in our artists.
That's what people pay you for. People say, "I'm going to you because I'm confident you're going to give me what I need you to give me."
Exactly.
No.
So, but. You know, when I was mixing mostly in studios, I purposely set a pace of 2 mixes a day just to put that pressure on me. If I went over a couple days, it was fine. It's not going to kill the budget. But that pressure always made me mix faster, and I felt helped the results. Now that I'm mixing in my own mix suite, and most of it's instantly recallable, a lot of times I'll go through 3, 4 songs at once and just keep going back and forth until I've got it where I want it. But I find that's almost a necessity because of that total recall thing. It's a totally different mindset, and you have to deal with the realities of that.
Yeah, back when we had real recalls, where recalls were like $5,000-6,000.
You had to avoid it.
You had to avoid it, but it seemed like we had better decision making. Now everybody postpones decisions forever. Like I never used to get. I'm not going to digress about that, but I'll just say one thing. I never got 8,000 tracks of backgrounds. I always got a stereo track of backgrounds. Now nothing is committed. Everything, there's no commitment now, and I think that
Well, that definitely slows down the process. When you have to distill 75 tracks down to 24, I don't care who you are. It's going to take a day, 2 days, and you know, a lot of the stuff I get is generally simpler, sparser productions, and those mix very fast. But when you get, there's nothing you can do. If you spend your first 6 hours just finding the arrangement and mixing background vocals, I mean that's half an hour right there, even if you're doing it quick. Right. So.
You said that analog kind of facilitated a quicker mix. Explain that to me, because I didn't understand that.
No, it's just because well, I think the analog stays out of your way, or stays out of my way more than the digital. First of all, if I want to make a change in a digital mix, I have to think of it, I have to go to it, I have to do it. I can much more just feel what's going on and grab a fader here, grab a guitar fader here, add EQ here. I can do all these things all at once, and it was a much more enjoyable tactile process. I'm over it now. I've been mixing, you know, using the computer for long enough now that in some ways I understand fully all the advantages of that and embrace those, and have forgotten about the disadvantages. But you know, I think that for whatever reason, I was always able to mix faster a 2-inch master than a digital master.
I hadn't thought about it. I think I might be that way too. Also, I like it when you said too many options are not healthy. Expand on that a little bit, because we live in a world of nothing but options now, in every turn.
Too many options is the same is almost the same as deferring decisions. Too many options, though. If we're to go back to too many options, if I want to get a guitar tone, someone sends me a DI, which really pisses me off when someone sends me a DI track. But if someone sends me a DI track, I literally have a million guitar tones to choose from. And, you know, producing records, you have 10 amps, you got 10 guitars. It could be up to 100 guitars, depending on the session. You could have 2 guitars, whatever. You have a certain amount of combinations. You either get your tone, or you're gonna have to rent something that's appropriate or whatever. But you're pretty much gonna work within the confines of what you have. When you have unlimited, it makes picking so much more time-consuming and so much more difficult.
Absolutely.
I don't want to sound like our parents, but it seems like that's the people that there's a handful of people that can take all those options, all this new equipment, and really make something great with it. But that's not the majority of what's out there. There's a handful of people that benefit by all of this. But the majority of people that have all these options, it just screws things up. It's like, how can you plan a trip until you figure out the destination, you know?
Exactly.
Horrible metaphor, but sorry.
I get it.
And so many times you hear a record and you feel like they were heading somewhere, but they weren't. It confuses me. And then you can hear indecision. You can hear the fact that they probably had access to too much stuff to work with, and the song gets lost. It doesn't become about the song. It doesn't become about the emotion. It becomes about the process. And anytime the process wins, it's not music. It's not good.
Yeah. Well, anytime I get a project where I have to deal with process first, that is the one really great advantage to mixing using a DAW, is that if I have to spend 8 hours on process, I can get away from the song for a day, 2 days now. And you couldn't do that before. Right. So you had to take a long break, go get a dinner, try and come back, try and get yourself out of that left hemisphere of process and get yourself, take what you've done, all the hard work that you've done on the process, and then now start over from the right side.
Start where you
and
should have been. Start from where it should have been given to you.
Yeah.
Also, too, have you ever noticed that the pickiest clients are the ones that want that do that to you? It's never the guys that do what you want, I'll take it, whatever it is. They never give you the.
Yeah, the less you get paid, the more likely your client is going to be a pain in your ass.
It does work.
Confidence is so critical to making the artist have the right kind of mindset to accept the mix. In other words, the artist needs confidence in you. That's a big reason why if you deliver a mix to somebody that doesn't sound good, they may never call you. They may never talk to you again, because as soon as they lose confidence that you're the guy, it's very hard for them to believe and understand that you may have made a mix decision or two that they didn't like, but that's all easily changeable. Because they've lost confidence, they no longer are interested in what you have to say. And that's a very interesting thing, that our business, you're expected to hit a home run every single time you're at bat. It's true. I mean, every time you sit down to mix, you're supposed to hit a home run. So don't ever assume you're not. That's why a lot of people put so much time and effort into every single mix they do. And they're probably getting paid way less than the amount of time they're putting in. But we know it's that important, so we put in all the time necessary to get something to be what it has to be. In our minds, we have to love it before we send it out. Another thing very critical that he mentioned is, once you're over the confidence factor, Eric Serafin actually said half hour, but he meant half day. When they're talking about, there's no way to take 75 tracks and break it down to 24 tracks, and find the arrangement within it without taking a half day to do it. And that's the point. It's like, and it's also a totally different mindset you're in. Like, that's the left brain side of the process it's like mathematical. It's, this is too loud and this is too low and this needs to come in here and this track they could be combined. Now, why is there 7 tracks of this? There should be 2. You break it down to 2. I mean, just stuff like that. You wind up doing all this process related stuff that will take you half a day, no matter who you are. It could be more. Even if you're fast at it, it'll take half a day, is what they were saying. And this is also why I don't love receiving tracks that are to mix that are 75 tracks. It should be 24 tracks, 48 tracks at most. If you can't get it done in 48, then you should have put some stuff together. I almost guarantee it. And it doesn't matter what genre you're in. A lot of people will say certain genres have the tendency to have more tracks. Not if you're committing your decisions, only if you're prolonging that decision and pushing it off, like passing the buck to the next guy to make the decision. In other words, if you added all those tracks, why can't you commit them and be done with it? Why is it that you have them all separated? Because you're hoping the mixer makes it better than you can do, but we got no idea what you had in mind when you added those 15 tracks of whatever that could have all been, basically summed together into a stereo track. We don't know what you're thinking by doing all this stuff, so you might as well put it together, because otherwise the mixer's got to interpret that his own way. And then when it's totally different, the blend or balance of all the whatever, keyboards, sound effects, whatever, different than the way you had it, you're going to think it sounds weird or wrong, or now you'll lose confidence in the mixer's ability because you left him too many decisions. In other words, a good producer commits their decisions so that it doesn't have the opportunity to get messed up by the next guy in the totem pole, like the next guy down the line, like the mixer. The producer is going to commit those decisions. So you, as being your own artist, if you're recording it all yourself, you're the artist, you're also the producer, you're also your own engineer. Commit those decisions that may be ridiculous to get the song down to 24 tracks or 48 at most. Get it down to that number so that it's manageable on the next person who's going to deal with it. Because I'm telling you, the longer that next person spends trying to make that whole thing and find the arrangement that you intended, like find the song, the mixer shouldn't have to find the song for 6 hours prior to even being able to work. But that's always what happens when you have an unmanageable session with tons and tons and tons of tracks. It's just what happens. So in my opinion, no matter, even if you are trying to avoid doing the work, but then you're hiring a mixer, it's counterproductive, because the mixer is going to not be able to do as good of a job, or it's going to take 3 or 4 times as long just to get to the same place. And at that point, I'm telling you, diminishing returns set in. The amount of time you listen and the amount of great product that comes out, there's a correlation. The less time you listen and the better the product usually is. So you're hurting your own song by doing it. But there's so much stuff, little gems in here of what these guys were saying. In the world we live in today, where there's very little in the way of analog stuff being recorded, everyone has an unlimited amount of options. Everyone in the box with sample library on top of sample library, and this dude's $1 sample pack, and this dude's $5 sample pack. It's just, they got options on options on options. So it just makes it where now, instead of the song, it being about the emotion of the song and how to make the best arrangement possible to create the best song, now it becomes, is this the right sound or is this the right sound? And then they flip through hundreds of sounds, way too many. You know, if you had a guy recording the part with his keyboard, he'd have a certain amount of stuff he could dial up, and that's it. You know, you want that kind of sound? He's got 5 presets in there, 7, 10. Think analog days. You want a guitar sound? Well, can you get it out of these couple amps in the studio? These few amps, these few guitars you have, these guitar pedals? There's a limited amount of permutations of sounds within those physical things. As soon as you now have a DI sound and an unlimited amount of different guitar amp patches in the plug-in form, you're putting yourself in a worse position. It's a position to just lose focus on the point, which is convey emotion in the song. Make it as simple as possible so that it's not overly dense. You know, those kind of sparse arrangements that are done super well. For a little homework, if you want, listen to a bunch of stuff and just pick out the songs you love that have these sparse arrangements and realize how much more impactful they are, how much more full and how much more presence. A lot of Chad Blake stuff, like it's just so, the arrangements are sparse and they sound huge and thick and great. You know, I mean, just listen to like a Black Keys song. Listen to what he did with the Arctic Monkeys. I mean, he does some amazing stuff out of some sparse arrangements, man. It's not super dense, over the top, crazy amounts of stuff. And I think it helps. So if you're the artist, consider all this, because you're not only the artist, you're the producer. You're all the guys. So you have to commit your decisions, and you also have to, you know, don't beat yourself up if it takes you a day plus a fresh ear to listen to it, but just keep in mind the whole time what Eric said about once he starts dancing, once he starts getting like feeling the groove. This will happen to me too. When I'm mixing and I start feeling the whole song, now I'm really feeling it, because that doesn't happen in the beginning. In the beginning, when everything's not the right balance, you're pulling it up, you're trying to make it where you start feeling it. Once you start feeling it, consider the fact that you could be almost done. Like now you can see the finish line. So get your confidence up at that point. Realize what's happening. Realize there shouldn't be much that goes on, because you could overshoot the landing. You know, you get right off the end of the runway when we could have landed right there at the finish line. Instead, you overshot. You did way too much. So much stuff in here. You know, there's another part of this I want to share in another day, but at the moment, that'll do it. If you got any questions, throw it in the comments. Just remember, everybody, you guys can mix just like they're doing. You know, he had to learn how to mix in the box from mixing, you know, on 2-inch tape, and then he goes to mixing in the box. So, you know, there's a logic here where like everyone has to learn, no matter what stage you're at. There's always a learning curve, and there's always new things to conquer. And these guys did it, and because they had other knowledge of the past, that helped a little maybe, but they still were able to do it. So it doesn't matter if you mix in the box, if you mix out of the box. Think about all the benefits of mixing in the box if that's what you do. You know, I'm trying to get into doing just mixing in the box also, or just to be able to do both. I really want that as like part of things I can do, because I'm so comfortable now in hybrid that I got to get comfortable the other way. But listen to what he said. Another reason your song maybe isn't there is because you're focused on one song at a time. Focus on more than one. That's the best part about in the box. You can focus on 3 or 4 songs. So even if you're only working on one from an artist, and I tell artists this all the time, if you want your stuff to sound even better, you should be getting done with more songs at once and sending more songs at once in, because then we just go from your song to your song to your song, and we keep going back and forth as we're mixing. Whenever we get stale on a song, we don't know what to do. We just flip to the next one, and eventually it's like we learn your sound and we can get your stuff to sound even better. But what I'm saying is, let's say you just have one song, from somebody. Put other songs in there that you're working on also. I don't care if they're your songs. You know, throw one of yours in there, two of yours in there, and work on that in at the same time as theirs, because just that jumping around is the best way to get your head to reset. You don't have to now, you know, go take a break and clear your head to come back with a fresh perspective when you flip to another song. It makes that even easier. You know, I am a fan of breaks while you're mixing, you know, especially, you know, if you have a tendency to mix loud, you got to take more breaks. But I like to mix low so the ear fatigue doesn't sit in. It doesn't set in on my ears. But flipping to other songs helps so much for new perspective, because now the whole thing sounds totally different. Your head's forced to reset. It can't help it. And when you go back to the other song, it's like a brand new song again. So no matter how many you get from the client or the artist, like the point is mix more than one at a time. It will help you, even if they're your own. All right. Now, if you are the artist, mix more than one of your songs at a time. Pretend there's a deadline. Like he said, it helped him to have a deadline. It got better results. So give yourself a deadline. Mix more than one song at once. Watch the results and what happens. Trust me on this. All right. Throw something in the comments. I really appreciate it. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Evan Jaffe. This is Custom Cut Studios. You guys got this. Take it easy.